So congratulations, you made it to the Thursday folder. So we just have one last kind of big activity. It's not really big, but really Thursday is the ultimate, this is, applying what you learned sort of activity. And then Friday is just going to be a reflection. So it's not really going to be anything new. You just have to think about what you did. But we'll talk about that when we get to the Friday folder. So today, what I want you to do is think back over the last maybe 24 hours. I don't know what time it is that you're doing this, or just this past day, because it's kind of late in the afternoon for me while I'm making this. It's almost evening, so I can really reflect back on the whole day that I have. And I want you to write everything that you did down, starting with waking up. So if you woke up at 9 o'clock, did you wake up and then go have breakfast? Did you sleep in a lot later than that and just skip all of that and go straight to lunch? Did you wake up and have some Takis? What did you do? Okay, you're gonna make a list of all of the things that you did in one day. Okay, you can write it all down. I wrote it down because it actually turns out, even though I was home for most of the day, I did a lot of things throughout the day. And I will show you my list in just a moment. And then I will tell you what you're going to be doing. I'll tell you step 2 in just a moment. So step 1, write down everything that you did in a day. You guys, I almost forgot. Seriously, everything that you did. If you posted stuff on Instagram, if you made a video for TikTok, if you were texting people, write that down. Trust me, it's going to be relevant in just a couple minutes. Here's my chronology for the day. I wrote down, starting when I woke up, everything that I have done up to the point that I am filming this video. Everything I could remember is here. Okay. So now that you've made that list, and now that you have seen my list, and you know way too much about Ms. Powell this week, there's been a lot about me. You got to look through my junk mail. Now you got to see every really ridiculously boring thing that I do with my time at home. I want you to go back through your list, and I will go back through my list. And I want you to maybe put a check mark or highlight anything that you did that can be recorded. Okay, if you were sending text messages, if you were posting on Instagram, guess what? There's a record of that. When I went to the farmer's market and purchases that I made, there's an electronic footprint there. Okay, someone can go back and be like, oh, Miss Powell was at this farmer's market at this time at 9 a.m. purchasing, I don't know, what did I get? Spinach. I got spinach and turnips, and we're gonna have them for dinner. Yum. So go back through that list, check or highlight anything that there would be a record of that you did, okay? This might have been a little bit easier when we were in school, because you could think, hey, I walked into school, it's 8:40 a.m., I roll up into homeroom, and my teacher takes attendance. That's a kind of record, okay? So now we are recording things a little bit differently because we are self-isolated, and we're gonna talk about that in the next segment. Here's where I surprised myself. So much of what I did can be documented today. When I went to the farmer's market, I used Venmo, okay? We posted some videos up on Schoology. So many things. I think there was only about 4 things that I did today that are not documented. Crazy, huh? Okay, guys, part 3. Now that you have made your list and checked it twice, now that you've made your list and you marked the things that leave a trail, that there is some sort of documentation for historians looking back at this time 100 years from now that can use that and kind of guess, well, this is what life was like in Nashville during this time of self-isolation. This is what the average 12 or 13-year-old, this is what the average 7th grader did during this time. Is it? Think back, look at your list. Is it accurate? Does it really accurately portray your life during this time? Are there things that were left out? Did you do something really important that there isn't a trace of? It's kind of interesting to think about. We base so much of what we know on history, on these primary sources, on these material artifacts. And every once in a while, something new comes along that we had no idea existed, and it changes what we know about history. So I'm not saying that history lies to you, but it might not be giving you a complete picture. And that's why it's really important when we are looking at these documents that we try to find multiple perspectives, as many perspectives as we can find. Does that make sense? I know if we look at, when we talked about the Maya, if you remember, we watched a show where they were talking about how they're using all of this new technology to make these discoveries that we didn't know previously. We didn't have the technology to go into like these really deep, dense jungles to see how big some of the settlements really were. And now with LiDAR and all of these other things, we are discovering more, and we are constantly revisiting and rewriting what we know about history. And you right now are playing a big part in writing the history of today and now. So I would encourage you, if you wrote down what your day is like, keep that in a safe place. Because, 100, 200 years from now, some historian, some archaeologist is going to be digging that up, finding it in a library. Maybe these papers get donated by your family. We donated a bunch of my great-grandfather's things to a historical society. And so presumably there's going to be a historian going in there someday and looking at that information and being like, wow, this was a really interesting example of the immigrant experience of the early 1900s or whatever they're looking for. Okay, so these kind of documents, even though it seems very mundane, very boring, some of the things that historians look at and take into account. Okay, so really that's all we have for the week. Tomorrow, we're going to do a learning ledger. It sounds much more complicated than it is. I'll make another video explaining exactly what you're going to do there. It's basically just a reflection. But moving forward, I want you to think about what you did this week and apply it to the age of exploration, and keeping in mind that perspective and points of view matter, okay? It matters who you are. It matters what part of history you're on. Isn't it in Hamilton, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, right? So who's telling the story? What perspective do we have here? Okay, so we are going to look at multiple perspectives moving on, and I want you to keep in mind that we may or may not have the whole picture, okay? Great. I will see you guys later. Bye.